Shawn McAnalley here with Dr. Bill McAnalley, Chief Science Officer of Aroga. Guys, in one of our previous videos, we talked about leukemia. And we brought up a term, Bcl2. And what we were going to do is dig a little bit deeper into that Bcl2 and see what role it plays in cancer, if you will. Dr. Bill?
Yeah, Shawn, would you point out Bcl2 there so they can see it?
Right here?
Yeah,
And
right
this
there.
is the cell here.
And the pink is the nucleus,
Okay?
and what we have is the arrows showing how they stimulate each other, and then the line with a block on it, like Bcl2, it blocks that stimulation, blocks that pathway.
Gotcha.
Like you probably see a few others up there on the left, right next to you. A couple of those stimulate right after a stat 3, 5.
Mm-hmm.
It stimulates, and then the next one blocks.
Yep, I see it.
Bcl2 blocks. You might point that out.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. And this is how they self-regulate and modulate. When one of them starts to going too fast, another one can slow it down.
Gotcha.
And all of these are put in our cells, these pathways. When we eat, food activates these different pathways. And when food activates that pathway, it also brings the nutrients in to fix that cell at that level.
Gotcha.
So that's why people are healthy if they eat a variety of foods,
Gotcha.
so that you can hit the different pathways that you have here. And all of these work in harmony with food. They're designed to work with food. Now, as they've been discovered, all areas of medicine are looking at like what's wrong with their cells, and how can we block or stop these different effects. And as a classically trained pharmacologist, that's what we think.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was taught we have receptor blockers and we have things that enhance receptor activity.
Right.
And the things that enhance it, they just enhance it. The things that block it, they just block it.
Right.
And food modulates it up or down, depending upon what the cell needs. And if it's over-modulating one way, then all of these others can feed back, slow it back down. They control each other, just like a real good family.
No, it just keeps it in equilibrium.
It keeps it modulated and running smooth.
Gotcha.
Now, some people have genes that are there, for purposes. I think the devil put them in there. Like when we ate the apple.
Right.
And God said, "You'll no longer live forever. You're going to die."
Yeah.
In that apple, we probably had those oncogenes
Right.
and other disease genes.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
so, depending on how we behave, we can turn on different genes that terminate our lives quicker.
Right.
So, these genes are under the influence of foods.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that many people, like my uncle was a steak and potato man, one of them was.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't, I'm not going to eat this stuff's grazing's for cattle, not for me.
Right.
And he died a lot sooner than other people because he didn't get the influence of these pathways. We didn't know they existed back then.
Sure.
In fact, they really just discovered them about 35 years ago. The first time someone wrote about them,
Mm-hmm.
hey, they're here, maybe they have some importance.
Mm-hmm.
And they're constantly figuring out more and more controls and how they work. And so the first thing a pharmacologist does is he tries to block one.
Mm-hmm.
And when he blocks it, then it throws, because you need it sometimes.
Right.
You need that effect. And food modulates it up and down, wherever it needs to go to keep you healthy.
Right.
And like if you look across the top up there, you see the G protein all the way across the top.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That connects all these pathways. So you may go a little way on this pathway and use some of the other pathway, and they're all under control. If I could show you the mitochondria. This Bcl2 is part of a family. This Bcl2 is part of his family. BAX is a stimulator of apoptosis. See, it has an arrow that stimulates.
Mm-hmm.
Bcl2 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole family of these. Here's the Bcl2 family. And all these around, they said there's about 200 that they've discovered so far.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them stimulate apoptosis and others inhibit it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the cell does something good over here, the cell says, oh, I'm healthy, it'll make one of those proteins that prevents apoptosis. I'm healthy. And then on the other part, something may happen that says, oh, we need to be redigested and reused again. Like I said before, of an average, there's between 50 and 70 billion cells in a healthy person that go through apoptosis every day.
Because something was wrong with them.
Because something was wrong and it couldn't be fixed. Or if a lot of times if you get better nutrients, then it'll say, hey, I think I can fix it.
Right, and then it'll fix it.
And then it'll fix it. Yeah.
So and just to kind of shed a little light on what we're talking about here, and what brought up that Bcl2 question is Dr. Bill had talked about its role in leukemia, for instance, in the previous video, and how that it's becoming really apparent in a lot of these studies that Bcl2, like somebody has that gene, you say you have a gene, which you have let's say you're more apt to getting some form of cancer, like say it runs in the family, you hear that? Well, what they're finding is, and what Dr. Bill's talking about, is this Bcl2 is higher in these people that have leukemia, and Dr. Bill can show you here probably in the future on some other cancers that what's happening is there's so much of that Bcl2 in there that cell that is a cancerous cell, a damaged cell, cannot go through apoptosis because there's too much Bcl2 and it's causing it to block it. And that's what he's talking about here, and he's saying that these foods, that we eat, if we eat the right foods, that can regulate this in our cells to where drugs can't do that, and when people with the drug mindset, like a pharmacologist, like Dr. Bill said, they think, hey man, there's too much of this on here, we're going to turn this off completely, and it's like, well, hold on now. If we turn off the Bcl2 completely, what's going to happen? Then we're going to start killing cells that don't need to die. So that's where we always have this overabundance when we try and do it ourselves. And what Dr. Bill's talking about is if we eat the foods we need, or the supplements, because we can't get all these foods. I mean, it comes from all over the world, you can't eat everything. What he's saying is our body can self-regulate. It can modulate these pathways and make them operate correctly. That way a cell, when it's damaged, can be either repaired or replaced, or, just create a whole new one, So that's what he's saying here, and that's where the thinking needs to change, and that's what he started mentioning in a lot of these videos, like MD Anderson, for instance, big cancer center down in Houston. Their thinking is starting to change. It's finally starting to, I call it get smarter, but starting to think like Dr. Bill, because I remember when Dr. Bill first started, I was a little kid, but I saw this, and my dad tells me stories all the time. I've learned so much from him. Great father I have here. He is my dad, by the way. That's why I got the same last name. But these stories that I've heard, I remember at the beginning, he was looking for what it was in aloe to cause a drug-like effect. And aloe was so awesome when he created Ace Mannin, it could never really pass some of the drug tests because you couldn't kill nobody with it. Because it was so good. They tried to kill rats with it, and they couldn't. He's got a story in one of the previous ones about that, but that's where this type of thinking, like Dr. Bill's talking about here, it's really happening. And what's so great about this PubMed articles is you can collaborate with all the other people that think like Dr. Bill does. They're almost on his level, I think. But this Bcl2 that we're talking about here is just one of those things. And what we're going to do in the future here, we're going to dig into more pathways as Dr. Bill learns about these so that we can share that with you guys, and that will enable you guys to start thinking outside the box and, you know, start seeing things for yourself. So guys, we're going to keep this one short. It's probably already been too long, but hopefully we haven't lost your attention. We thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned, because we're just going to continue on and on with more things to keep you educated. Guys, this is for the health of it.